Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll start in a few minutes. We'll give folks some time to join in, but thank you so much for being part of this panel.
Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Judge Charlene, Judge Jasmine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and good evening.
Hi, Judge Monette. Good morning. Good to see you. Can't hear you. Just give it a few more minutes. We'll start at 5 after. Get started. For those of you who just joined, we will start just in a minute or two. Just give folks a couple more minutes to join in. But thank you for being here. Okay, let's get started, everyone. Hear ye, hear ye. Welcome to All Rise Women's Judges in Session. It is presented by NFALA. It is a bit early in the Philippines. It's a little bit later here in the US, and maybe some folks will join us, but I am happy. I'm excited for this conversation that I will be having with the esteemed panelists. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Jerry Gonzalez Abrams. I am an immigration attorney based in Seattle, Washington. I am honored again to be part of this panel that was organized by PhilPro board member Brian Ramos and President Luella Cabalona of PhilPro. For the participants, we will have question and answers at the end. So if you have questions, please direct them to me in the Q&A addressed to moderator, and we will do our best to get to questions. Um, and just a little bit more. So again, I am president of the National Filipino American Lawyers Association as of 2 days ago. So I was installed 2 days ago. So I will be president from November until next November 2022. And I am not a judge. I am an immigration attorney, like I mentioned. My family's firm is Gonzalez, Gonzalez, and Gonzalez Immigration Law Offices. We do family-based immigration, deportation defense, and I'm based in our office in Seattle, Washington. We have offices in Portland, Oregon. We actually have staff, team members based in the Philippines. Pre-pandemic, the office is in BGC, and we also have team members in Mexico City, Mexico. And one fun fact I like to share, the last thing about me, because the focus is on our esteemed panelists. I'm not a judge, but my great uncle, the brother of my mom's mom, was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in the Philippines in 1979 and in the 80s, Enrique Fernando. So my Lolo Iking, that he is my tie to being a judge, I guess. But without further ado, I want to I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves individually. Unfortunately, Judge Risa O'Connor was not able to be here today live. She did send video in advance, but due to some technical difficulties, but also lack of tech savviness on my part, we won't be able to play the videos as of right now, but we will have plenty to talk about with our panelists. So we can start with Judge Jasmine Hernandez, who is based in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. So, Judge Jasmine, want to take it away and please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel today. Thank you to PhilPro for having me. My name, as Jerry mentioned, is Jasmine Hernandez. I'm located in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, and I'm an associate judge with the Circuit Court in Chicago. Prior to becoming an associate judge, I was just sworn in October of this year, so it's still very new. I was an attorney with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, and prior to that, I was a prosecutor with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, also in Chicago.
Great, thank you, Jasmine, or Judge Jasmine, excuse me. I will be respectful, even though we're friends in public. I'll call you Judge Jasmine. Next, Judge Monette Mesa, can you please introduce yourself? Oh, Judge Monette, we can't hear you just yet, unless other folks are able to hear you.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not certain how. We'll give it just a little bit of time, then maybe Judge Charlene, we might have you go. Just 1 second. Maybe what we can do, let's do this. Judge Charlene Clara Mendoza. Judge Charlene, can you please introduce yourself a bit?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone tuned in. So, Jerry, I prepared the slide for my introduction. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Go ahead and share screen.
Okay. So, it's loading. Can everybody see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm Judge Herlene Clara Mendoza. So, about myself, I'm a native from the province of Batangas, Philippines. I'm 35 years old and the youngest of my five siblings. My parents are the late Attorney Ed Mendoza and Generosa Mendoza from Cebu. I graduated in 3 years from De La Salle University, major in political science. Currently, I'm a lawyer of 10 years. I engage in private practice for 2 years and serve the government for 8 years. So that's my family, Mendoza family. So as to work experiences prior to my appointment to the bench, I worked as an associate in my dad's law firm, and thereafter in Baterina Castles, Lozada, Ciblani in law office in Ortigas. When I entered the government, I started as a branch clerk of court in the Regional Trial Court of Batangas City, Branch 84. And after 6.5 years, almost 7, I was promoted as clerk of court and ex officio sheriff at the office of the clerk of court, Regional Trial Court of Batangas City. And just last July 2021, I was already appointed to the bench as Municipal Trial Court Judge at Large for Luzon. So during my stint, I also engage in extracurriculars. So one of which is a board director for Clerks of Court Association, member of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, JCI. I also served as president of DLSU Political Science Society and course rep of DLSU College of Liberal Arts. And going back as when I can still do basketball, I used to be co-captain in the basketball varsity. And then the awards, you can just browse through. I'm currently a nominee for the TOIM Foundation for Outstanding Young Men. It's still ongoing. And then second, Gawad Balisong, Search for Outstanding Filipino Game Changers. And in last 2019, I got the Soul Award for Outstanding Clerks of Court for the second level courts by the Society for Judicial Excellence in the Supreme Court of the Philippines. So I belong to the first batch of MTC Judge at Large under Republic Act 11459, or what we call roving judges. I am currently assigned as acting presiding judge at MTCC Lipa City, Batangas. So I'm sharing also a picture of my MTC JAL, Judge at Large batchmates during our Halloween party hosted by our co-panelist, Judge Monette. So currently I'm hearing small claims cases, criminal and civil cases. And for my last slide, I love the beach and I love my dog and our other 8 fur babies. So that's it, Jerry. That's a comprehensive introduction, I guess.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you, Judge Charlene. Judge Monette, are we able to hear you now? I want to just check. No, I can't hear you. I'm not sure. Judge Monette, I'm not sure if you want to restart your computer and then try and log back on. As she's doing that, Judge Jasmine, I want to go back because it was a little open-ended in terms of introduction. And I know you, like Judge Charlene, have been very involved in different organizations. So do you mind sharing some of the outside of, as an attorney, outside of as a judge, other organizations that you're part of that add fulfillment to your career?
Sure. I guess I gave the very, very abbreviated version. So I was born and raised in Chicago. I've been in Chicago, in Illinois all my life. I went to Boston University for undergraduate school. And then I went to University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana for law school. When I graduated law school, I didn't know that I wanted to practice law at all. I actually wanted to practice. And I ended up earning a master's degree in labor and industrial relations from the University of Illinois Institute of Labor and Industrial Relations. After earning that degree, it dawned on me that for my law degree to have any actual value, I needed to actually practice. And so I worked in the Circuit Court of Cook County as an administrative supervisor with the First Municipal District. So in that capacity, I got a behind the scenes glance at everything that happens in the courts in Chicago. And I realized that I actually wanted to litigate. I wanted to be in front of a judge. And that's when the idea kind of took root about maybe becoming a judge. And so from there, I went to the prosecutor's office and then the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. In between, Jerry, this is what you were getting to, I made sure to stay very involved in the legal community just in general, but specifically the Asian American community. I'm past president of the Asian American Bar Association of Chicago, and I'm also past president of the Filipino American Lawyers Association of Chicago, and a prior regional board member, of NFALA. And so through all of those different bar associations and those different groups, I've learned a lot, continued not just the legal education, but expanding my network as well.
And one more quick follow-up, Judge Jasmine, if you don't mind, since this panel is to highlight women judges and so many different things to balance in life. And Judge Charlene mentioned Marley and her 8 fur babies. I know your family is also really important in your life, Judge Jasmine, and having to balance as a working parent as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit, whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, no, definitely. Is this a good time for pictures, or did you want that later?
If you want to do, we are going to move on to some other questions too in terms of personal. So if you want to just maybe give a little bit of background, and then we'll move on to the question.
That sounds good. So I have one sister who is now in Texas, and I'm married. I have a husband and a son. My son is 7 years old, so he's in 2nd grade now.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And I know everyone, we always have a lot to balance. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about all of the panelists. We have a lot of questions coming up. Now, Judge Monette, I do see you turned off your camera for a bit, but we definitely want to make sure your audio, that we can hear you, because I know you have so much goodness to share with us. Can you hear us okay, Judge Monette? Not sure. But this is just how it is. Sometimes we're in these virtual sessions and we deal with some technical hurdles. Okay, so let's do this. I do want to go back to Judge Monette once her audio is working, and I do see some behind the scenes that Kit is going to help with some audio issues. So let's just go back though. We have a list of questions, and Judge Charlene, how about I'll start with you? Okay, and this is getting to know you even more. I do appreciate the background that you've already provided. So, this is,
Okay.
it is for Filipinos, for Filipino culture. It is where sometimes, it's known where certain professions are somewhat expected of Filipino children. So as we were coming up with this panel, it was a kind of a fun question of, so you chose law instead of doctor or nurse. So what made you interested, Judge Charlene, in law and eventually becoming a judge?
Yeah, Jerry, actually, I came from a family of lawyers. My grandfather, my uncle, grandpa, my father, and my brother, 2 aunties, and me are all lawyers. So when I was young, I was already inspired and an uncle was still here to take up law. My dad and my lolo also became judges. They served the judiciary as presiding judge, and my lolo became justice of the Court of Appeals. So I think with that background, I really got interested in taking up law and eventually becoming a judge for myself.
And what area of law, I know you mentioned, Judge Charlene, that you were an associate at your family's firm. What areas of law did your firm practice?
It's we practice, it's a general general law firm. We practice criminal as well as civil all throughout, and some admin cases and registering titles and BIR transactions, Bureau of Internal Revenue. So aside from those, I think what was interesting was appearing the Court of Tax Appeals, because that's not really my forte. And but then again, it was a quite a fun event or transaction.
And that does seem that with your wide range of practice, it probably helped prepare you for being a judge as well, for the different issues you're going to see. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, more on my work experience as branch clerk of court. I don't know, Judge Jasmine, if you also have that in the US. It's like the right hand of a judge. We call it the clerk of court. And then I serve as a clerk of court, which enabled me to become more aware in the transactions involving the judiciary in the first level and second level courts.
No, and thank you, Judge Charlene. And Judge Jasmine, I know you had mentioned when you got your master's at University of Illinois after law school. But do you mind just sharing again as you were growing up and the distinction? Because you mentioned law, but did you ever consider the other, you know, doctor, nurse, engineer? Did you ever think of other professions?
Sure. So I think I'm the complete opposite from Judge Charlene. All of my family was the typical what you think about, right? Within any Asian family. My dad was a emergency room doctor. Everybody in my family was somehow involved in the medical field. And I was the first attorney. And so that was very different. I think everybody was very surprised. They weren't sure what quite to make of it. And even myself, I graduated from Boston University with a degree in economics and a minor in Spanish. When I graduated, my dad asked me, so what are you going to do now? What are you going to do with this degree? And I told him, I said, you know what? I think I thought about it. I want to go into medicine. So I'm going to go back to school, take some additional classes so I can take the MCAT. I did that. I signed up for the class 2 days before my first science class was about to start. I changed my mind. And my dad was very supportive of me going back to school because he was a proponent of medicine. So he was very supportive of that. He was horrified when I said I wasn't going to go to class. I think my mom was just worried. She just was worried that I didn't know what I was going to do. But my dad was horrified. And he said, so what now? What are you possibly going to do now? And I had some friends that were taking the LSAT. And that's what you have to take to get in. That's the entrance exam to then go to law school in the United States. And it's offered 3 times or maybe 4 times a year. And I had some friends that had been studying for the LSAT, maybe we're going to take the LSAT. And out of my mouth, I just said, I'm going to take the LSAT. I'm going to go to law school. And I think they just didn't know what to do. So I took the LSAT. I ended up going to law school. My second year, between my first year and second year of law school, I clerked for a federal magistrate judge. And Judge Charlene, I think this was your question. Do we have, the clerk of the court here? So in Chicago specifically, clerk of the court means something different than what it does in the Philippines. Clerk of the court refers to the administrative staff that's actually handling the files. So they're in the courtroom, they sit in the courtroom with the judge and they're passing the files, they're telling you the history about the case. We do have clerks though, and they're called law clerks. And the law clerks, I think, are similar to the clerk of the court in the Philippines. And so as a law clerk, you can be a law clerk during law school, or you can be a law clerk. Usually, sometimes it's your first few years out of law school. Some judges, especially though, like in the Supreme Court or the higher level courts, they want a law clerk with much more experience coming in. So it just kind of depends. But for my first to second year, I got a I got a clerkship with a magistrate federal judge. And that was kind of, a prestigious position. It was difficult to get. And I remember I went home, and it was right before the job started, and I was with my dad in the car. And he asked me again, he said, it's not too late. If you still want to go to med school, I'll support you. And, I'll cover the costs, and you can still take your science classes. This is after 1 year of law school, after getting a job, a clerkship as a job. And there was still that feeling like, do you want to do this? So honestly, once I made my decision, it didn't bother me. I knew he was talking out of a place of, worry. He didn't know lawyers. I didn't know lawyers. And there was this uncertainty, whereas with medicine, he knew medicine. He knows doctors. Our family is doctors and nurses. And there was that, I think, security in that knowledge. I was fine with it. I mean, I took it all with a grain of salt, and I can laugh about it, but it was different. Everybody told me I better not go into medical malpractice.
No, and that is interesting because I'm a little bit of a hybrid of both of you. So Judge Charlene, there's a lot of attorneys in my family, but then Judge Jasmine, my mom was of the mindset, lawyer, doctor. And sciences, I did a lot of sciences in undergrad, but they never came that easy to me personally. I was good at writing and speaking. Sciences, I got pretty good grades, but I had to work really, really hard. So I just figured, you know what? I'm going to go to law. My dad was always happy as an attorney. I realize now, I think it was, immigration law and how we help people. I think it's really fulfilling work. So I think that's what's happy, because law is stressful. It's a very stressful career. But yeah, no, so it's interesting to hear both of your perspectives. Now, I also am trying to see. So I see Judge Monette logged off for a bit, but logged back on. Judge Monette, can you hear us? Okay, are you able to speak where we can hear you? Oh, drats! I really want to hear what she has to say. Well, what we'll do is we'll just keep going. Unless Jasmine, do you say?
I was about to say, can she maybe try to join from her phone? If she was logging on from a computer, if she tried the link from her telephone. I know it would be a different kind of setup for her to see, but I don't know if that would be easier.
I'm not sure.
She messaged in the chat box. She's just changing laptops at the moment.
Good. Okay. Well, let's do that. And I know she'll probably join us, and we'll still have plenty of time. We still have an hour and a little bit of time to talk. So we'll definitely get to hear more from Judge Monette. Now, the next question here, this is really fascinating to me, and I'd love to hear your perspectives regarding as a female attorney, and to the extent you feel comfortable speaking on the challenges along the way as a woman, as balancing family, no matter what family composition, whether it's extended family, aging family, or children, and then as a Pinay, and any challenges along the way through your career. So maybe Judge Jasmine, will start with you with this question.
Sure. So I'm just writing this down. So first, as a female in the field, setting apart the Pinay part, but just as a female in the legal field, I spent a large majority of my career with the prosecutor's office, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. And some of the things that I found in that field, which may be similar kind of across the board, but there was definitely a lot of deference given to the male attorneys. And even when I was a first chair in some of the criminal courtrooms, because we have a criminal as well as a civil side, and I was always in the criminal. In those criminal courtrooms, I noticed that the defense attorneys, especially if they were privates, right, because they didn't know better, they were just coming in and out of the courtrooms, but they would always go to the male attorney first. Even if he was the clerk or the 7-Eleven or somebody somebody below me in rank, they would go to him with an offer or with a question. And then that person would say, oh no, you have to go speak to Jasmine. And there was always this moment of like, oh, okay, hello. There was one instance where there was an attorney who said something like, oh, this, he didn't say young girl, but it was like, oh, this, young lady or something. And I said, oh, well, this young man, referring right back to him. And when I replied that way, he was like, oh, excuse me, the prosecutor. And I said, yes, we're in court, we're before the judge, right? No matter what the actual age difference, I'm not the young lady, I'm the prosecutor, and you're counsel, you're the defense attorney. That's just what it is. Interestingly, the judge's reaction at that time was to kind of brush it aside and be like, oh, you're being a little too sensitive, right? That I was being too sensitive. But I am thankful to say that those were some of, those I think are minor things compared to maybe what other people have experienced. But those are some things that I have seen through my journey. With regards to family and having a career and kind of moving up in my career, that
Download ako ng Chrome.
oh, we can hear her now.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Me?
Yes,
Monette?
we can hear you.
Oh my God. Thank you,
We can hear
Lord.
you.
Oh my God. So happy now.
No,
Okay,
Judge
okay.
Monette.
Ooh,
Judge Monette, let's do this.
okay.
We'll have Judge Jasmine with this one
Yes.
question. We'll have her
Yes.
complete it, and then I'm going to go to you because we all want to learn more about you. Okay, so
Yes,
just give
but I was able to listen the whole time.
Oh, good. Oh, yay, good.
Hey, you're
Okay, so Jasmine, you were just talking about in terms of as a working mother, just balancing family.
Sure. As a working mom, I think it's difficult, whether you're balancing mom, aging parents, extended family, whatever it is. I think it's always hard. People say, "Oh, you can have it all." I don't necessarily think that's
Okay,
true. Or that's correct. I think you could eventually have it all, but I think at any one moment, you're just trying to do the best that you can and juggle whatever it is, and make everything work at the same time. I've been very fortunate that I have a very supportive family. So my mom, when she lived in the area, she would constantly be helping. My husband would, constantly help with our son. And I was also lucky in the sense in my positions with different organizations, I had the ability to say, this is going to be a family event where kids are welcome, or this is going to be this. So whenever I had the opportunity and it was appropriate, I would bring my son, his name is Jack, I would bring him to different things. So he got to be exposed to many things as a young child. But I think it's good for him to see, but it was also good for me because I was able to kind of combine the two and just do the best that I could. So I do have one picture that I just wanted to show with regards to that. Let me see. Oops, exit. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So this was for my swearing in. It was done over Zoom, which is why I'm alone looking at a computer. This is my mom, my grandma, and my sister after the swearing in. But this is the one that I think most people are interested in. And Jerry, you'll recognize this too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my son, Jack. And he's with me when I was taping an acceptance speech for a NFALA Chicago event. And then on the right-hand side, that was when I accepted a Trailblazer award from NFALA Chicago. And I brought him with me to the event. He picked something from the silent auction table. He picked this photograph of the Cubs winning. But that's how I try to incorporate both sides of the professional and the personal life. So it doesn't always work. It doesn't always kind of go as you hope. But when it does work, it's really nice. And you get to share some of these special moments.
And I think, Judge Jasmine, didn't Jack score like 3 goals or something like that right before that?
Yes. So, so going to juggling everything, right? The day that we did the videotape, Jerry, as Jerry noted, he's in his soccer uniform because I did the videotape that morning at like 11 a.m. It started, and then he had a soccer game at 1 p.m. So he came dressed in all his gear, and we went from one right to the other. And then yes, at his soccer game, he scored like 2 or 3 goals. So he was kind of on the moon that day.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll go back to this question. But then let's actually, Judge Monette, I'm so glad your audio is
Oh,
working now.
it's
So
okay. Can
yes, we
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
perfectly, perfectly. So
Yes.
Judge Monette, thank you. I wanna hear more about you. Can you please
Okay.
share
Okay.
with the group and with attendees about your background? And I'm gonna ask some follow-up questions too, but please
Okay.
share your
I'll
background.
just also also share what I have prepared. I'll share screen. Oh, okay. Sorry. I hope this works. It's such a relief when I was able to. You can hear me. Okay. That that's me. So first, good afternoon or good evening in the US and good morning here in the Philippines. I'd like to thank this opportunity to the Ayala Foundation, to the US Embassy, to share my judgeship journey. Like Judge Charlene, I was recently appointed as one of the Philippines' first judges at large last July 2021. And I think this is a good omen, or this is a good start for my judicial career, that I'm able to share my experience and also able to learn the experience of other Filipino American lawyers. Very, very inspiring event. And I think all of the participants, Kit, Attorney Jerry, my fellow panelists, um, yes. So my judgeship journey was just a normal one. I was just an ordinary kid who loved to read. I love to reason. I love to think deeply. I'm just a quiet type. And partly because I don't have any skills or talents like dancing and singing, that I really seriously considered being a lawyer. I think many of us can relate to that too. Okay. But this was my game changer. I termed it as game changer because my mom died when I was just 7 years old, and then my dad was a seafarer. And then during the wake of my mom, my people were telling me, Filipinos, like they would say, "Oh, kawawa naman," or like that. You don't have a good and bright future ahead of you. So right then and there, I decided that I don't want their predictions to come true. So I had the firm resolve to really, to work hard to fight it out. So there. Um, so in my education, I was lucky enough to enter the UP Diliman. It was in the Philippines very kind of prestigious to be included in the UP. And then I also wanted to have a different experience. I went to Ateneo and also to reconnect with religious background. Okay. And then I passed the bar. This was, I think, in my office, Court of Appeals. We have a very huge lady justice there. I'm posing with my certificate of bar admission. Okay, private practice. When I was in law school, I remember that one of my dreams was really to go into a big law firm. So I went into Accra in BGC. I don't know, Attorney Jerry, if you were able to see the Accra. So in that case, it was very nice. It was fulfilling because I'm with the best of the best. But somehow I feel that there is lacking because I wanted to be engaged in an activity where I can feel that I have a purpose. I have that I can be of service. So I went into the government. I entered into the Court of Appeals, and I drafted decisions, did research. Okay. Yes, and this one, so to continue my growth as a lawyer, I applied as a judge. So the first picture, it was outside the Malacanang, wherein we were called. Malacanang is the house of the president, so we were called for a meet and greet. And then the next picture is a picture of me and my batchmates. So I think this is a very very happy event for all of us that our dreams have finally come true. So this is my oath taking. So like what I've said, I am a court attorney at the Court of Appeals. So I chose Court of Appeals to be where my oath taking should be. So it's very nice. I still remember I got goosebumps upon saying my oath, because I felt that I was it was a lifelong devotion. Like, I don't know, maybe the priest would feel something like this also. Though, so this is my courtroom in Cainta, Rizal, and the first time I wore a robe. Okay, that's all.
Thank you so much, Judge Monette. I actually have a follow-up question, and it goes into this the subject of questions we're on. What made you choose law instead of medicine, for example? Because you said the resolve you have, which is so inspiring, but why law?
Law, because I like to think, I like to read books, and medicine not so, because I don't like science, and I don't like anything related with blood. I'm not into gory stuff, so I think yes, that's it.
No, and I'm similar in terms of that, Judge Monette, so I can relate. Although I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy, so but it still makes me happy. I'm a lawyer. I love Grey's Anatomy though. But no, no, no. And again, thank you. I'm so glad you were able to join in. And what I'm going to do is we'll go back to some of the more, these other questions. So, Judge Charlene, do you mind speaking to where we were talking about the challenges along the way as a woman in terms of family obligations to balance as a Pinay and challenges along the way in your career?
Okay, sure, Jerry. But as I can say that during my private practice as well as government service prior to my appointment to the bench, I really didn't encounter any challenge as a woman, just like what Judge Jasmine mentioned. But I think I'm fortunate enough. But I know that it happens in some areas, and some other people experience it as well. But let me share with you my journey to my judgeship position, because it wasn't easy. I applied for the judge position for 3 times. So the process here in the Philippines is that once a court is declared vacant, the Judicial and Bar Council will post it as vacant, and applicants will submit voluminous documents and thereafter conduct an interview. And once you pass it, once you make the cut, you have to be chosen by the president of the Philippines to get appointed in the bench. So I had difficulty in my application. I didn't make it in the first 2 tries, but fortunately, together with Judge Manette, I got it on my third attempt last July 2021. So thank you. I never gave up, because it's quite disheartening if you don't get the post on your first try. So, aside from my perseverance, I think God and this part of my family and friends played a big role in my appointment to the bench. So, I guess that's it, Jerry, for my challenges. I hope
No,
I hope that anyone who's listening can learn from my experience to never give up and just try and try until you succeed.
absolutely. No, Judge Charlene, thank you so much. And as you were talking, and I don't want to make assumptions, but when the with this question is challenge as a Pinay also, which I don't know, maybe it's not as relevant in the Philippines since predominantly Pinay, but in the US, Judge
Yeah.
Jasmine, I want to ask you one, that quick follow up in terms of as a Pinay, as a Filipina American, have you felt any challenges along the way in your career? Um,
As a Pinay, I would say not really, but I think it's because everybody believes I'm Hispanic. Nobody initially thinks that I'm Asian or Filipino. I'm half Chinese, half Filipino, and everybody always thinks I'm Hispanic, a Latina. So I think that might be part of the reason as well.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that, Judge Jasmine. So I learned something new about you. No, Judge Manette, let's pose a question to you too. I know you did mention, challenges along the way. But in your career and your illegal career so far, are there any particular challenges that you felt you learned from, or that you feel you could share with others in terms of if they face those same adversities?
Oh, okay. The challenges, same with Judge Charlene, wherein the road to judgeship is very political, and that sometimes it can be disheartening to see that you know your capacity, you know your abilities, and then you see someone who just got there just because of connections. I think this is also prevalent in the US, right? It's not just because we're a poor country like that we're like this, but yes. um so that's my main challenge, was not to really give up like Judge Charlene, and to stay focused. And then I guess my next challenge is our the poverty in the Philippines, the court system, our lack of resources. That's the challenges I can think of right now.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. It's interesting to hear that perspective from the Philippines. And I just wanted to echo Judge Jasmine that as a Filipina attorney, Filipino American attorney, and also with my family's law firm and just any other areas I practice law, as a female, it is where I do have many clients that they won't maybe listen to me, or they won't want to listen to me as a female. They would prefer to hear from a male attorney, even if the male attorney isn't as experienced. So,
Yes.
I try not to take it personally. I know that comes with the territory. And I feel that, once the client or the prospective client can see I know what I'm talking about, then they're like, oh, okay, I'll listen to her. But it's just an initial hurdle. And I tell other female attorneys, I tell female law students here in the United States to be ready for that whenever I get a position to speak. I think it's important. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality that we live in. So we just have to expect it and know that it's something we're going to deal with. But no, no, no. Thank you all so much for we got to learn a lot more about you personally. Now I want to turn to um, questions regarding professional advice, based on your significant experience in professional advice. So this is a little bit, it might be a little depending on how much you want to share. But Judge Monette, let's start with you in terms of what do you feel was biggest mistake? I don't like to say mistake, but biggest challenge along the way. And what would you have done differently looking back now? Because hindsight is 2020, right? But then I also want to round it off or end it up with what are you most proud of? So we'll do a kind of a full circle.
Yes, Attorney Jerry. I think I've really thought about this question so hard, and if what was my biggest mistake? I think my biggest mistake was when I was in law school. I only considered being in top law firms as a measure of being a great lawyer. So in that case, lawyers are really very competitive. I think generally. So when I was still studying, I never envisioned myself to work for the government or to be of service to others. All I want is to really prove my worth as a lawyer. So in that case, I made a scramble in the private practice. I wanted to be in a top law firm without realizing that there is so much potential in working outside the private practice, working for the government, and that there is much purpose in here. So, if I would be able to change something about my career, it would be my thinking during in law school, so that I may be able to open up myself to future public service. Yes, that's it, Attorney Jerry.
Excellent. No, thank you for sharing. And then, if you don't mind also saying, what are you most proud of? We'll end it on that note in terms of what are you most proud of?
Okay, I'm most proud of where I am now. I'm serving the government. I think in my heart this is really where I should be. It is where I find happiness, my fulfillment. People would tell that being a judge is very hard. It's really really very hard. I remember when I first learned of my appointment, I cried for it literally every morning for about a week because I was afraid. Judges are being killed in the Philippines, and then there's always the pressure of not going back to my original life because just being a lawyer has its own limitations, and being a judge carries with it, I think, more than 10 times limitations. So I'm proud to say that I have fully accepted all these consequences, all these sacrifices, and then looking forward to my experience as a judicial career. My retirement would be in December 2054. Although it's a long time, but I'm I'm dreaming, or I'm looking forward that come that time I would be able to look back to my career and say that I did well.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be able to look back, and God willing, wow, 2054. No, thank you so much for sharing, Judge Monette. How about Judge Charlene, if you don't mind taking this question next? So, again, just as a reminder, your biggest mistake or maybe the biggest learning experience, what would you do differently? And then also, what are you most proud of professionally?
Okay. Actually, Jerry, I can't say that I had the biggest mistake, but more of challenges along the way. And I wouldn't do things differently because I learned from them, but it would have been better if let me go and become a bit specific. First, I get a focus on case law or jurisprudence on a topic basis and all its updates so that you can easily save time when you do legal research. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having internet issues. And second, develop skills in Excel to check and indicate all the deadlines and do systematic reports and case management. Because as lawyers, we have a lot of deadlines, right? Sometimes it's hard not to miss a deadline. So with my appointment in the bench right now, so deadlines are a must for us, and I think it would have been better if I mastered the skills in Excel or in whatever app that is to monitor these cases. And perhaps my pointers or advice to our listeners or to the other joiners in this convention is to first update your resume from time to time, because when you tend to attend different orientations, you're gonna have a hard time recalling all the events, orientations, and seminars that you've attended to. So it's best to update it regularly despite your busy schedule. And then being in the government made me humble. So I think each and every one of us should be able to be courteous to everyone and become a good public servant. And I guess, Jerry, the best or the most thing I'm proud of aside from my appointment to the bench was when my judge and I were recognized as outstanding clerk of court, and my judge was outstanding judge for 2018 and 2019. It was awarded by the Society for Judicial Excellence and the Supreme Court. Well, it was a very prestigious award. It was conducted after a nationwide search. So I'm very proud of that, and my family is too. And aside from that, I guess I'm also proud of the policies and innovations I introduced in my previous offices because they're still implementing it right now. So I guess it made the office better. So I'm also proud of that. So that's it, Jerry.
No, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much, Judge Charlene. Jasmine, for you, same again, the recap of the questions. What do you mind sharing your biggest mistake or challenge along the way? What would you do differently looking back? And then also what you're most proud of professionally.
Yes, I'll definitely talk to all of that. Can I jump back on one thing though? When you were talking about the challenges and how you got into this field, one thing that I would say, not necessarily again as a Pinay, but just as an Asian American going into law, I think it's very common for everybody to be very big firm focused, like Judge Monette was saying, that is you go in and you're, as an Asian American, you're either going to be an intellectual property attorney or you're going to be in a big firm. And then if you're, if you're specialized, then you're specialized, right? That's fantastic. You're in immigration, you have your own firm, you're doing this. And then it's like, wait, now you're in government. Like, what happened? Why are you in government, and why versus at the big firm, or being your own law firm, being your own boss and doing something that way? So that I could see how that would be a challenge for some. Thankfully, my parents never put any pressures on me that way to do any one thing. So I'm very fortunate, but that was something that I found just speaking to other Asian attorneys, Filipino attorneys, Chinese, any Asian attorney. I was most often the only government attorney in that ring. And so that was just an interesting point. And I thought of that when Judge Monette, you were mentioning your experiences. One of my biggest mistakes, I've let myself be driven, or not be driven. I let my fears and insecurities about things sometimes influence me more than they should. In law school, I didn't want to speak in front of people. I didn't want to do litigation. In my head, I said, I am never going into litigation, ever. I don't want to be in a courtroom, don't want to be a litigator. In 3 years, 4 years down the line, I'm taking night classes at our local law school after work, because I've realized I've seen people in the courtroom, and in my head, I could do better than them, right? And so I went and I applied myself and I took these additional courses to get up to speed on that area. And then I was a prosecutor, so I was in the courtroom all the time. And that's just an example, but that hesitation and not just kind of jumping in and saying, okay, I might do really bad in the beginning, but it's because I have to learn. And once I learn, it will get better. That's difficult for me. And that's something I still work on, I think, even now. But what am I most proud of? I'm most proud of me. I'm proud of my perseverance. I'm proud of seizing opportunities. And I'm proud that I've put myself out there. And thankfully, I've had so many rewards. And I'm very fortunate that I've had so many rewards and blessed. But it's hard. I think it's hard for anybody. It's hard for any woman, any Filipino woman. There's so many things. There's so many different things that we're all juggling all the time. And when I look back at some of the things that I started that are going, that some of the things that I've just done, I'm proud of myself for taking the chance and for trying it.
Thank you so much, Judge Jasmine. And actually, to speak to Judge Monette and Judge Jasmine, what you were just saying, that is also very similar, Judge Monette, here in the States. And Judge Jasmine said it too. When you're in law school, it's like the holy grail, not to be sacrilegious, but is to go to a big law firm. That is, when you're in law school, that's kind of what people think. And so I did that route initially out of law school. I wasn't super happy, and I could never see myself there full time, long term. And then I tried a different route of in-house attorney, which again, I think also too, it's kind of, you think, oh, in-house attorney. But what I found for me personally, I wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy. And so, and I do feel that there are a lot of people, even in big firm, some of my friends, they're not necessarily happy. And maybe it's just their particular position that they're in, right? But ultimately now, when I switched to immigration law, I'm personally very happy and I love practicing now. And so when I do speak with attorneys, newer attorneys, because this is my 14th year practicing, which is crazy that I've been practicing for that long. But I tell people, yes, any job you have, there's going to be parts you do not like, but please don't be unhappy for that long of a day. Your life is too short to be just miserable. So find an area that'll make you happy. And whether it's fulfillment, right? The type of work you're doing is fulfilling. So that is Judge Monette also here in the States. It is very much like you have certain ideals of what people think you should
Yes.
strive to, but if you're not happy, do something that'll make you happy. So no, thank you all for sharing about that. Let me move on here really quick to the community type questions. And some of this again is, some of these questions are geared a little bit for Filipino American. And I know that with Judge Jasmine and me, we're here in the US, and with Judge Monette, Judge Charlene, you're in the Philippines. So, but these questions are still applicable. So as Filipina attorneys or as judges, what are your favorite things about our community and what you feel that brings to the practice of law or as a judge? So how about we'll start, Judge Charlene, with you with this question.
Actually, Jerry, that the questions are really hard for me because initially I kept on thinking about what a community, what's supposed to be the right answer to these type of questions. But I'll try my best to give my input on the matter. So my favorite things about the PhilAm community, I guess it's the feeling of identity. With this, a good example would be this PhilProCon. I just met the moderator, my co-panelist, just a while ago, but I already feel connected because Filipinos, wherever we are, we're very welcoming and it's very easy to connect. So that's what I love about the community, and I can see it here in this convention. And then I guess aside from that, maybe the feeling of being one with our co partners in other countries, especially the America. Because if I just may add, I think in the judiciary we have programs or seminars with the U.S. aid, and the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines are conducting trainings to the justices of the Supreme Court as well as lower court judges. So I guess that's it. That's it, Jerry. That's very good for me.
Thank you, Judge Charlene. How about you, Judge Jasmine, in terms of your favorite things about as a Filipino, the Filipino American community, and how it integrates with practicing or as a judge?
Sure. So I think even though right here in the Philippines and America, what Judge Charlene said is extremely relevant here. And what I would say too is the community aspect of it. Growing up, half Chinese, half Filipino, I associated and I identified more as Chinese. I wasn't very involved in the Filipino community. The majority of my dad's family was in California, and he wasn't really a go out and socialize type of person. So I identified much more with the Chinese. It was really after law school when I was actually practicing that I met a few other Filipino attorneys, and I was shocked. I had no idea. And as you know, Jerry, that has turned in, that small group of Filipino attorneys that met, that turned into FALA Chicago, a group that's grown tenfold in Chicago of all Filipino attorneys. And then that was kind of a starting off point for NFALA. And the sense of community that I have with the Filipino group is amazing within Chicago and nationally. What I think is very unique to the Filipino culture is, like Judge Charlene said, this welcoming sense of feeling. And specifically when I was applying for the judgeship, even though I'd been involved with FALA and NFALA to varying extents over the years, when I was applying and I asked for a letter of recommendation for assistance, It was immediate. It was, yes, what can we do to help you? What do you need? I knew I had this community behind me, people that I had met in NFALA, that I knew some people in Chicago. Even though I hadn't spoken to them, some of them, in a little bit, I was able to reach out to them, and it wasn't oh, who are you? Why are you asking me for this? What's going on? It was immediate. Jasmine, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. Try, go for it. What can I do to help you? And I think that's very special and very unique.
No, absolutely, Judge Jasmine. The Philam community, the Filipino lawyers community is so proud of you and so proud of you being a judge. And Judge Monette, Judge Charlene, it is, that is different, right? Because here in the States, there are comparatively amongst practicing attorneys, Filipino attorneys only make up a certain amount. And so here in the US, it's very much, it's a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and just support. We rally behind each other. And so, yeah, no, I really love, and that's also why I've been so involved with the Filipino lawyers group.
Yeah.
Now, Judge Monette, are you able to share again? I know this is from an interesting perspective because some of these questions are towards the Filipino American community,
Yes.
but
Yes, for this question, I've asked two of my college law school close friends who are in the United States, and then they shared to me their experiences, like what Judge Jasmine and Charlene said, the instant connectivity, and then the shared networks, and then the opportunities, and I think that's also good because we have common values, and it's really nice that the Filipino American lawyers you have your organizations that you're heading, Attorney Jerry, and it's looking bright for all the Filipino lawyers here who want also to practice there, or and I think in a general way that would be beneficial. I mean, the benefits would trickle down. We'll be producing better lawyers, will be more known in the international field, because I think Filipinos are very hardworking. Is that correct in the US? So we're leveling it in the professional area. We're not just only those workers in the service industry, or I mean in the low income industry, or the usual, but it's very nice to hear these stories, Attorney Jerry.
now I'm going to change it up a little bit. And so since these questions weren't prepared in advance, but I think all of you will be able to speak to this. Now, this panel is, of course, women judges. And we don't have the biggest crowd today, but I'm sure that this will be a type of conference that folks after the fact will be able to access. So, and what's also unique, I think, is great that all three of you had storied legal careers and more recently are now judges. So, what advice would you give to law students who they want to become judges? What advice would you want to share with them as they pave their way to get to where you are, is what they want to do? So, Judge Jasmine, can you please start with that, unless someone else would want to?
No, I can. I was just smiling because I was writing down what I was going to say. So I think I would have three things. The first thing is that you start building a network. You want to have people that are going to support you, and it's never too early to build the network. In the United States, and it sounds like it's kind of similar in the Philippines, but a little bit different too. But in the United States, and specifically in Cook County, you have to practice a certain number of years before you can then apply to be a judge. And during that application process, you're writing down all of your trials, all of the lawyers you've worked with, all of the, everything that you've done. And then you go through an evaluation process, and it's kind of threefold. You're evaluated by one bar association, and then there's another group that's a network of like 10 different bar associations. You're evaluated by that group, and then you go for your interview before all of the presiding judges in Cook County. And when you know people and when you have a network, they can help you navigate that, and they can help, give you pointers and tips. And that's just extremely important. I think some of the young people today, they don't really understand the value of a bar association, or, why do you want me to go to this event or that event? I don't have the money to pay for the event. I don't have the time. I have another obligation. And I think, especially if you want to join the judiciary, I think it's important either way, but especially if you want to join the judiciary, you need to think of it as an investment and as kind of a stepping stone, a foundation that then you can build upon as you go. Because if you wait until, the year before you want to apply to be a judge, then I feel like you're scrambling because you don't know what to do. You don't know who to talk to. And now you're trying to meet all these people. And I think it's just so much more pressure on yourself that you could potentially avoid. And in the meantime, when you build your network, that's also good for your job, right? You can more business connections. The second thing I would say is, if you have the ability to kind of diversify your practice, I think that may also help. I don't know if that's something specific to the United States, though. I had an extensive criminal background, but I also did some civil work with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And I think that was something that was attractive, or at least differentiated me from other applicants, because in the circuit court that we have, you come in and everyone kind of starts in one assignment in one court, but then you get put into different court areas. So you might be doing criminal, you might be doing civil. And to be able to say that you've done these different areas, that's very helpful. My third and final tip is kind of goes on what Judge Charlene had mentioned earlier. Be a great record keeper of the things that you've done, whether it's trials, what the trial was, who it was with, if you've written a publication, if you've spoken on a panel, if you've put together an event. Keep those lists now, because at some point you're going to need to tell somebody, either in writing or during a conversation like this, all the things that you've accomplished. And everything is so important, but if you wait 5 years, or if you even wait to the end of the year, right, you forget because so much has happened. If you can, keep a list, keep your notebooks, your calendar books. So at least you can go month by month and say, oh, I went to that event, or I did this. And it kind of helps jog your memory, because I think people do so much, you just don't want to forget anything. That's it.
That's great advice, Judge Jasmine. Thank you so much. Judge Charlene, how about you next in terms of advice, and for law students who may be interested in becoming a judge someday? What advice could you share?
Okay, for the law students, I guess after passing the bar, you can attend the prejudicature program. Okay, we have this here in the Philippines. It's a program that you have to pass before becoming a judge. So it gets asked here during the interview by the Judicial and Bar Council. I think they have revised it before. I took it for 10 whole days to get refreshed with case law, and then you have to take a written evaluation test after and pass it. It's just like the bar exams all over again in just a span of how many days. So it's best that you get to take the prejud and top it, because it's going to be asked when you apply for judgeship position. So after passing the bar, I think most of the concepts in law will still be fresh, so you can immediately take the prejudicature program by the Philippine Judicial Academy. And then next is maybe to build your resume, because as Judge Jasmine said, you have to build your network. You should, from time to time, attend conventions such as PhilProCon, and be active in your bar associations, because you can learn a lot from them. So initially, I thought I wouldn't be active, but as I came home to my hometown in Batangas, I immediately sought out and became active in our IBP Batangas chapter. So again, keep all the documents, and that would help you a lot. And prepare a while still studying, you can prepare your case law or notes and just update it from time to time. So that's it, Jerry.
No, thank you. That is excellent advice. And Judge Monette, can you share next the advice you would give to law students or current lawyers who want to become a judge?
Okay, my advice to law students is not to really straitjacket your options, and not to be too fixed. You know, you have to really, because like all of us, we don't really know ourselves until we grow old. So we're constantly growing. So let's keep our minds open. Let's keep our options open. And then the second is, I'd also like to emphasize the soft skills, because as lawyers, when we graduate, we will put premium to being a typical or a stereotype lawyer, you know, the looks and everything. But sometimes it's always important to really just, you know, be kind, the values, because that would really see us through. And another comment, I guess I really agreed with Judge Jasmine when she said that joining associations are types of investment, because I've heard from my friends that they are discouraged from joining your organization because of the fees. But like now, I think I'll just encourage them that go, because you're going to meet people, there's a network that these fees are just a little price to pay for it. Attorney Jerry.
Yeah, no, that is also really good advice, Judge Monette. Thank you so much. Now, I believe Judge Jasmine, excuse me, wanted to add one more item. Judge Jasmine, can you hear okay? I see that your video you're trying to turn on, but are you able to hear us and speak okay?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
Okay, I moved my computer a little bit. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to touch it though. I'm not going to touch it again.
Yes.
Um, I just wanted to add, um, since this is focused especially on the young attorneys, the young law students, be very smart and be very cautious about your social media, right? Because I think the hard work, the diligence, all of that, we're just assuming, right? You have to work hard and you have to be diligent, but don't throw away opportunities by then doing something silly on social media. Because remember, it's, you know, from the Philippines to Chicago on Facebook, it's nothing. And everyone sees what everyone's doing right now, and the people that you are going to serve as judge with, your counterparts, your peers, you know, they can see you on these social networks, and you build your reputation as you go. I think everybody understands that when you're young, you do things that maybe, you know, not the best idea, or you would think twice now. But posting pictures of yourselves at parties in compromising positions, like, just be smart about it and just understand that there's a time and a place. And if you are already thinking of, you know, far down the line what you want to do, kind of keep that as your end goal, and just think twice.
No, that is excellent advice, Judge Jasmine. And based on my vintage, not my age, I mean, I was in school before social media was big or is just getting big. And so it's a challenge with those who are in law school currently or newly practicing that. So it's just created a different dynamic with social media and future employment or future
Yep.
positions. Now, we have 11 minutes left. I don't see any Q&A, but I have another question that I would like to pose. I'm trying to see. There's something called raised hand. Someone raised their hand, but I don't think they're here in the session anymore. So what I will do is let me pose this other question. Obviously, the global pandemic is global, so there's impacts here in the U.S., in the United States, but also in the Philippines. And while the pandemic has been devastating on so many levels, and some maybe what we could share is a silver lining. The idea that despite the pandemic, if there is a positive that you would like to share in terms of as a judge or just even personally that you feel that you'd like to share? So maybe Judge Charlene, do you mind starting with that? A silver lining or something learned from the pandemic?
Sure, sure. I think what silver lining we can say from the pandemic is the fact that we get to stay home and spend more time with our families. I think that applies to everyone in the world. And in terms of work, actually, the pandemic fast tracked the use of video conference in the conduct of hearings in the judiciary. And the second thing is it also fast tracked the payment online of legal fees, because initially we are old school, we use the payments face to face. You have to go to court and pay it, but right now in my previous office I already implemented the cashless payments. So payments will be made to the authorized banks, which is the land bank of the Philippines. And now I think online or bank to bank transfers were already allowed. So despite the pandemic, transactions were still uh, processed, and clearances, certifications, as well as filing of cases still pushed through, because I was at the office of the clerk of court with administrative jurisdiction on the matter. So I guess that's what helped, or that's what we can say that the pandemic gave us despite the virus, Jerry.
No, thank you for sharing, Judge Charlene. Judge Jasmine, do you mind sharing next silver linings professionally and or personally, despite the global pandemic?
So first, professionally, I would say that it definitely has fast tracked things within the judiciary. And I think it's increased access to justice quite a bit. It's allowed people that might be going to court for routine matters that they wouldn't go to court for, like traffic or anything like that. It's given them an opportunity to participate in their cases. People that are homebound, that are sick, that maybe can't afford, at least in Chicago, to drive into the city, to park, to go in. It's given them more access to their cases, to their court. I think that's fantastic, and it's showed the judiciary that there is a way to do this, because we were very old-fashioned. We are very old-fashioned here too. We're using carbon paper. You were making payments in front, right? We have an electronic filing system, but it's still kind of a work in progress. So I think it's just opened people's eyes to the fact that there is maybe an easier or a more efficient way of practicing law. On a personal level, I think it's definitely taught me to not just show other people kindness and grace, because that's so important and so necessary in today's times, but also to show myself some grace and those close to me grace. Everyone's doing the best they can with what they have, and every day it's just, you take it day by day, hour by hour. Even now, the computer issue, you just do what you can.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Judge Jasmine. Judge Monette, do you also mind sharing silver linings professionally and or personally despite the pandemic?
Okay. Every time there's a court hearing and there's an old lawyer that is appearing in a video conference hearing, there, I think it warms my heart, because I can see that they are struggling, with the video and with the audio, but they're in the process of learning, and I think this is very good that we're in a transition, so we can effect those small changes that can be beneficial in the long run. We were made to think about our systems, about what works, what would work fast. Because if the pandemic did not happen, this e-file, this electronic filing, this electronic system would not have been thought of, or this would not have been implemented, and basically this really improves the justice system in our country, that we are trying to automate things. Attorney Jerry, that's it.
Do you want to share, if you want to, Judge Monette, from a personal perspective too, any silver linings?
Personal perspective, I guess the traffic.
Oh,
It's
seriously.
yes, yes. I know you've experienced that traffic in Manila is very, very horrible. So I think it gives me more time to think, more time to rest. When I go to office during my skeleton schedule, I am more refreshed, more kind. So I think that's the silver lining in terms of personally.
Yeah, Judge Charlene, I shared with Judge Monette, I've only been to the Philippines one time. It was in 2016. But the traffic, I feel like I can never
Can-
complain about traffic in the United States ever again. And just
yeah,
knowing how close something was, but how long it may take to get there. So, yeah.
yes. No.
And Judge Charlene, I wanted to echo what you said too. I mean, I guess for me too, and what Judge Jasmine said earlier in terms of trying to balance it all, trying to have it all, the pandemic forced me to have to slow down. I felt like I just was going, and it forced me to slow down. And I was able to then spend more time with my family. I never really took more traditional maternity leaves, and that was by choice. But I got to spend more time with my two little kids, and so I think that was a silver lining of the pandemic.
Yes.
Now we have just a few more minutes left, so I'll just open it up. I mean, Judge Jasmine, Judge Monette, Judge Charlene, any of you have questions of each other that you that you want to know of, or of us, with us in the U.S. or with you in the Philippines?
I think
Nothing.
with Judge Jasmine, yes, yes. I don't know. I'm thinking about your judicial system there. Is there anything that you would want to suggest to us here in the Philippines?
Mm.
Wow.
Because I'm just a starting judge. I mean, I've barely started. It's just in just 3 months, so I think I needed you know advice.
Yeah, what I will say is I will admit I'm very ignorant on the judicial system in the Philippines. What I thought was very interesting, just from when we were speaking before the program began, was that Judge Charlene was telling me she can be sent anywhere to be a judge. And that she had peers that were traveling, 9 hours to go be a judge. And to me, that was very unique and very different, because I am located in Cook County, so I can be a judge in Cook County. And while Cook County is very large, there's very definite parameters that I'm allowed to go into, a very, finite jurisdiction. So I don't necessarily know that I can speak to the judiciary with regards to being or the judicial system with regards to being a judge. I'm new also. So
Mm.
I was sworn in October of this year. So you guys are the senior judges
Oh,
on
okay.
the panel. You're the senior judges on the panel. But from what I've seen so far, I think it's just the same on both sides, in the sense that, right, it's the hard work. You want to be timely. You want to let people have their day in court, for them to give their stories, and just to know that the person listening is being fair and being open-minded, while at the same time applying the law the way it should be.
Thank
And that
you.
is and that is the
Thank
perfect way
you.
to end. So what I will do, because we have probably seconds left, I'd like to formally make a motion for adjournment of the session. And can one or all of the judges please grant the motion? I don't know if I'm asking correctly.
Okay. Motion is granted.
Thank you, thank you.
Session adjourned.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
it was so nice to be on the panel with all of you. And I think it might switch where folks are going to start heading to another session. I'll hang on.
Thank you, Attorney Jerry, for all of your time and your great questions.
Yes.
Oh, it was
Thank
lovely.
you.
It was lovely to be
Thank
on the
you.
panel with all of you. I think I'll just stay on just a little longer, depending on as it switches to the next.
Yeah.
Not quite sure how.
Me too, Judge Monette and Judge Charlene and everybody who attended.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you
Judge
so
Thank
Jazz.
much.
you.